I'm Fergus Crawley and welcome to a new series that I am calling Brothers in Arms, a simple format exploring more complex discussions. Me and a bro hitting an arm session, talking about topics that dive a little deeper. Brothers in Arms.
I'm truly excited to be bringing this series to life. But it's not just a new series, it also marks the return of the podcast, which will now be called Tenacity, and we'll be going through a few changes shortly to implement that switch from the modern mind. The podcast will continue to dive into resilience, mental well-being, and the lessons we can all learn from adversity. And once a month, Brothers in Arms will feature as a special edition within Tenacity, with episodes shared right here on the main YouTube channel to direct you towards the wider conversations happening on the podcast YouTube channel. So do please go and make sure to check that out and subscribe as well. This way, the main channel remains the hub, while Tenacity carries those longer form discussions forwards.
So I'm truly excited to bring this series to life by combining my love for fitness, for meeting new people, podcast style discussions, and this YouTube channel into one. So before we get started, please do let me know in the comments down below which guests you would love to see an episode with, and I promise I will do my absolute best to get them locked in. Welcome to Brothers in Arms, episode number 1. With my first guest, my brother, Jamie. Look awkward. Thumbs up. What's your name and where are you from?
Jamie Crawley and from Edinburgh.
Hence the thick Scottish accent like myself. I do acknowledge that we are immediately breaking from a tradition that does not yet exist because we're going to be doing a upper body session plus arms. But we're doing this because Jamie and I actually realised earlier today that it's been over 12 months since we did a bench press session together, I think I'm right in saying. So I guess there's no better way to start this series than by broing it down with some bench pressing.
I'm the head of operations at Omni Performance and formerly a professional cricketer.
And a pretty relaxed mobility enthusiast by the looks of things.
I do what's needed, let's say.
Bloody hell. He's going to be strong today, I reckon. These are moving well. I don't plan to get this close to all of my guests in the future, but given the whole, same surname, family thing, I thought I'd just get right up in his grill to ask Jamie, death row meal, go.
I'd say I've got two answers here, one that's publicly acceptable and one that's true. I reckon starter would be probably calamari with like a aioli dip.
Some zesty lime.
I'd probably go lemon actually, not lime.
Also zesty though.
Bit zesty. Then main would probably be beef Wellington with triple cooked chips and maybe like a red wine jus. And then dessert, sticky toffee pudding. Or cheesecake.
Make a decision.
Sticky toffee pudding.
Okay, Jamie, what is your proudest athletic achievement?
I'd say first and foremost being reaching professional cricket, albeit it wasn't for as long as I was hoping to, but to still tick that off was obviously a big thing for me personally, and something I'm proud of and probably becoming more and more proud of. But outside of cricket, I'd say probably the 500-pound deadlift and sub 5-minute mile. I think it was just quite a fun thing to be able to work towards, and then to actually tick that off in the context behind all of it was quite cool.
When did you first fall in love with cricket, so to speak?
Honest answer, I don't really know in terms of exact age, but I'd probably guess when I was 7 or 8 maybe. My dad, your dad, our dad, played for a while. Obviously that was a big part of his life, so when I was growing up that was obviously something which I saw him do briefly, and then we obviously just played that, and then a few of my friends got into it, and then that's when I sort of enjoyed the game and wanted to get more and more into it. And
do you still have the Linkin Park edit from your 6?
Yeah, somewhere.
You do?
I don't, but it is somewhere.
In theory, on a family computer somewhere, is a banger of an edit made by a 10, 11-year-old you. Probably equal in body weight relative to age as well in stone, because you were a bit of a porker when you were younger. And he made a banger of an edit with Linkin Park over the top of it, of him hitting a shot that won them a game. So hopefully we can roll clip. When did you realise that it was something you want to have a proper go at?
To be honest, probably a lot younger than most people do. Why that was, I'm not sure. I think I said to my dad when I was probably around like 10 or 11 that I wanted to be a professional. And then sort of from then, a lot of my life was geared around that from quite a young age, I'd say, which we can come on to later, but that probably then became a bit of my downfall.
Well, yeah, go on that. What did you, I mean, I know, but what did you sacrifice along the way from that age of 12 through to playing professionally that I guess a lot of kids your age wouldn't have been sacrificing?
Because I sort of set my sights on it from such a young age, and in my head, like, that was what I wanted to do. And it wasn't like I want to grow up and be an astronaut. Like, it was genuinely, I was wanting to put all of my effort and time and mental capacity into cricket and becoming a professional, and it was no more than anything other than I want to be a professional cricketer and play for England. I mean, sacrifices along the way, obviously the sort of cliches of parties, activities with friends, that sort of stuff, but I think for me it was more just like the constantly thinking about a career at such a young age just meant that time when I should have been spent just sort of enjoying life and actually trying new things, I cut myself off from quite a lot. So like friends would often ask me to do stuff with them and I'd be like, no, sorry, I need to train, or I've got cricket tomorrow, that sort of thing. And it did become a pretty huge part of my existence when it should have been something on top of everything else I was doing, I'd say. Yeah, just the sheer mental capacity it can take up when all you're thinking about is trying to reach a certain goal, but at such a young age when you don't really have much life experience or full self-awareness, that sort of thing.
How important was training off the pitch as well as on it? And I would indeed like you to share the very specific instruction you were given whilst at Lancashire Academy.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously cricket's a funny one because it's such a notoriously skill-based, more gentlemanly based sport. People often don't see cricketers as having to be fit and strong. That's changing a bit. It still has that reputation, but my first year in the Lancashire Academy, which for reference is in English cricket, you've got the academy system, which is essentially like the highest level before you then start signing professional contracts. So it's like the highest level of junior cricket per se. And within that, they do have quite a lot of S&C programs and a dedicated S&C, nutrition, that sort of thing. So when I first got on the academy, so I was 16, to fit your typical matching my weight, that probably was true. I was quite chunky at the time, but we did the yo-yo test, which for it is like the bleep test, but you get 10-second rest at the end of each interval. So I did all right in that, but then we also, amongst a few other things, we also did skin fold testing. So it's like calipers on your body to check what your body fat percentage is, and I was severely in the eyes of the standards,
and anyone with them,
over the threshold, let's say. So we did that. Obviously I did quite well in the yo-yo test, so I was quite pleased, but then the following session, which would have been like 2 or 3 days later, I got pulled into the director of cricket's office. At this point I was only 16 as well. I got pulled into the director of cricket's office with the S&C coach as well, sat down and basically had a spreadsheet opened up in front of me and saw a flurry of red when everything should be green. And I was like, oh, okay. And then basically got told that you're too fat to be a professional cricketer. Again, I was only 16, which, to be fair, looking back, was quite a
you took it on the chin,
good moment in my life. But so I basically got given this whole spiel about how if I was a pro, I'd be taken off training and I'd have to lose X amount of weight to then get back onto training. So essentially it was like a punishment. Because I was obviously only 16, they gave me a bit of leeway, so I could still train, but got given a protocol by the S&C. Obviously at that point I was still quite aware, obviously knowing you, of sort of fitness, nutrition, all that sort of stuff. I'd been tracking on MyFitnessPal every now and then, so I was aware of how nutrition and losing weight and cutting per se worked.
You just chose to ignore it up until that point.
Yeah. Ebbs and flows. But so essentially got told I was too fat. I was desperate to be a pro cricketer, so I took that on the chin and went, right, okay, I'll change it. So then that would have been like November time. We then did the next fitness testing in March, I'd guess, April maybe, just pre-season. I ended up winning the yo-yo test and dropped my skin folds from, this won't mean anything to anyone who doesn't understand the numbers, but from 120 to I think 68, 69, and the S&C and basically everyone within the coaching group was just like, fucking hell, you've done well here, because I don't think anyone was actually expecting me to have done that. So that was sort of, there was a lot of moments, but I'd say that was probably one of the ones which sort of gave me a bit of a,
that was where it really ingrained,
kick up the arse and drive to work hard.
But I think that taught you a lot about your own training and your own nutrition and how to make it a bit more sustainable in the long term, which ultimately then translated over to being a bit of a deadlift specialist and getting into running and all that sort of stuff along the way. So Whilst it was funny and you did take it on the chin, I'd say it was a pretty valuable turning point along the way, wasn't it?
Hugely. I mean, I think that's why sport's great, because you sort of get quite harsh lessons earlier than most other people do, because unfortunately it's quite black and white in sport to an extent. So you sort of learn to fail and deal with harsh comments earlier. But at the end of the day, if you've got a goal in mind and you need to do the work to get there, then you either have to do it or you don't do it and fall behind. Don't get me wrong though, I do still ebb and flow with the old weight on the scale.
You can turn it on and turn it off. Wow. Your bed's just seen better days, hasn't it?
That's a lot heavier than it used to be.
So 19 years old, Jamie deadlifted 500 pounds and ran a sub 5 minute mile on the same day. 2 weeks before, I did a 500 pound squat and sub 5 minute mile on the same day. So that is a really good example of the power of training partners and pushing one another side by side, because those sessions were tough, weren't they? I remember I was working full time for somebody else back then, and the excitement that I had closing my laptop at 5:30 to go downstairs and get ready for the gym and get all hyped up and get it done was really quite powerful. Training wise, what were the biggest lessons that you took from attempting and succeeding with a 500 pound deadlift and sub 5 minute mile on the same day?
I'd say on the mile, I think you've spoken about this quite a lot. It's unfortunately, unless you are just an out and out runner and have been for a while, unfortunately you're just going to have to deal with some pretty horrible sessions where you're questioning life and what you're doing. Because whenever you're doing 6 400s or 8 400s or 4 800s, whatnot, then if you want to get your mile time down, you need to be pushing very high intensity and just getting used to that discomfort. And if you can't do that, unfortunately, well, in my opinion, from my own experience, some people might be different, but you would very much struggle to be able to push yourself in a mile, because like that third lap is grim.
It's different gravy, isn't it? It's horrible.
Different gravy. So yeah, I think that's the thing. Like, unless you are just a very natural runner, and obviously probably a lot lighter than we are, it is just being able to handle that discomfort, because no matter, you can't really hide from that distance.
Training wise, week to week, how did you find the deadlift impacting the mile and vice versa? Because we had a very similar training structure, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, this probably isn't the answer that most people would want to hear, but I didn't really feel it affected me that much.
And who's doing his programming?
But yeah, I'd say like a lot of people do struggle to, which is entirely fair. People do struggle to go from like a lower session into intervals. I'd say there's a big element of getting used to it more mentally as well, because I think once you get into the mindset of your legs are going to feel a bit heavy and you just need to keep turning over, you can sort of learn to just handle it a bit better, can't you?
What was the session that gave you the confidence that you could do it? Do you remember?
The times I was hitting 400s were always pretty solid. It was a Nick Simmons video where I think he said if you do 6 400s with a minute rest, average that out, that's your rough mile time. I did it in Vaporflies, have your own opinions, whatever that may be. Did it on a straight road, did the 6 by 400s, and I think I averaged like 112s per 400, and I think that was when we both looked at each other and how easy I found it and gone, this is actually going to be quite easy. I did run a sub 5 minute mile 2 or 3 weeks before as well. I think I did like a 4:55, but not the deadlift. And then obviously on the day, it was basically, we knew I had the mile, it was purely just whether I did the deadlift, and then thankfully both of them actually moved quite quickly in the end.
Was it 4:54?
4:53 on the day.
Nice.
And the deadlift moved remarkably well as well.
Annoyingly well.
Yeah.
I couldn't deadlift 500 pounds at 19 like that.
Yeah.
And I was competing as a powerlifter. Prick. All right, so now that we've spoken about how we were doing hybrid training long before it was cool, why don't you tell us about when you felt like you had a breakthrough cricket-wise?
For people who don't understand cricket, this won't mean much, but I was playing second team cricket at Lancs. At this point, I was 17. We had a game at Old Trafford, which is Lancashire's home ground, where England also play test matches, so international matches. I was the only non-professional, as far as I'm aware, from memory, in the team of 11. And what was cool was James Anderson, who's now regarded as like one of the best ever bowlers of all time, was playing for Lancashire Seconds at the time, and it was actually the first time ever where he bowled from the James Anderson end. So Old Trafford named one of the ends after James Anderson because he's from Lancashire originally. So he walks into the changing room, and I remember just sort of being sat there as a 17-year-old, obviously still wanting to be a pro, sort of thinking, shit, this is actually pretty fucking cool.
Playing with Jimmy Anderson, that's sick.
And that team was full of like a few guys who played for England or were close to playing for England, all other pros, and then there I was sort of as not a kid, but in the grand scheme of professional sport, a kid. So yeah, that was just quite a cool experience, albeit in the grand scheme of it didn't really mean that much in terms of my whole career progression, but as a sort of sit back and acknowledge moment, I'd say that's probably the one which comes to mind.
Nice. So, how did it feel, finally, after all these years, getting signed as a professional to Durham County alongside some big players like Ben Stokes? Pretty big, right?
Yeah, there's an element of sort of you have a moment of like a pinch me moment, but then you quickly just sort of get used to it. Not to sound like it's not a big deal, but you obviously just kind of get used to being surrounded by those guys, because if you don't, then you're not really going to progress as quickly as you need to. But yeah, it was very cool, and I think it was like just another reassurance that you have made progress, but you're also still a very long way off. Fucking hell, what are these, 15?
Yeah. You haven't mentioned to camera that you're horrifically ill, so sound very nasal. Did you ever struggle to separate your self-worth from the amount of runs that you scored?
Yeah,
Please
enormously.
elaborate, yes. Yeah.
I mean, granted, I'm still very, very young, but I think anything which you put a lot of value and hard work into, whether it's sport, music, art, work, career, anything like that, once you get to that threshold of it's no longer just enjoyment and you lose that like spark to play, it then becomes your identity, and then when you fail, you then fail, which is a very unhealthy slope to go down, and I and many others found that significantly.
I mean, for me, this channel, it's tough not to get sucked into the metrics and ascribe my value and measurable contribution to the things that I want to measure and achieve when looking at the channel and social media in general, because it's tough. You've got this obvious number that you can focus on, and that's the thing that you're passionate about. But once it becomes professional, once it becomes commercial and integral to who you are, it's really, really difficult to separate the person from the number. Yeah. Which I know, I mean, we've both struggled with it, but you, in a professional setting, yours, I can pivot on things in ways that you couldn't.
Yeah. I think people would disagree with me on this, and like, I'm very open to hearing, but I do think that what's the phrase, is it do something you enjoy and you never work a day in your life? Personally disagree with that.
I disagree with that.
Because I think once what you enjoy becomes work, it very quickly loses the enjoyment, because you're no longer waking up doing it because you want to, you're doing it because you have to. Like I was this is going very deep. I was almost in like a prison cell, and I could see the key, but I just didn't want to get it.
What memory in your head sticks out as the happiest you've ever been playing cricket?
I played for a club in Merseyside called Wallasey for 4 years. Very community focused club. I was like the paid player, so I wasn't from Wallasey, lived close by, became very close with these guys, got put into their team almost as like the hired player, but then very quickly sort of fully integrated in. And we won, in my second year there, we won the T20 regional final, and it was like the first thing those guys had ever won, and like they all grew up together playing cricket together. I did well in that game.
Did you score 100?
Yeah. So we won against a bigger team than us who'd won stuff before, and seeing like the joy and excitement for those guys. So albeit it's not the most me personally having enjoyed it, but like seeing that and knowing that I've had a positive impact on them was probably the most elated I've been with cricket.
What's very telling there is that the key difference there is you could measure your contribution to someone else rather than directly to yourself, if you know what I mean. Like you had a tangible experience of contributing to something else through your efforts. But the challenge when you're in it, I'd imagine, is that day to day you're just reflecting on certain shots, certain strategies, certain premeditated this and that, and numbers and contribution to the team and the win or the loss, that it's easy to just focus on you rather than looking at sort of how that contributes out the way. Yeah. I've explained that horribly, but do you know what I mean?
I think thing with sport is, I mean, like anything really, but like you want to dwell on the positives and like appreciate that and give yourself a pat on the back, but then you're very quickly going to come into another negative, whether that's business, life, anything. I think if you focus so much on the positive that then you're not expecting it to change, you can very quickly go down a slippery slope. So I think sport teaches you quite quickly to don't dwell on the negatives too much, don't dwell on the positives too much, but appreciate both for what they are. And I think that's where, like, if you're constantly playing and training, you just have to quickly move on, but seeing it affect someone else is almost more fulfilling than seeing it affect yourself, because you know you quickly just need to go and do the job again.
Nice.
If that makes sense.
Nice memory to have. Do set. What did you learn as a pro that's still implemented in part of your day-to-day life as a lesson?
I think the biggest thing for me, I don't know who the quote is, but it's what you do when no one's watching that makes a difference, or something like that. And I think it's in any sport, it's a bit of a cliche, but it's the stuff which you do when people aren't watching that will then help your performances. So whether that's S&C, diet, mindset, training outside of scheduled training sessions. And I think it's not looking for that constant validation and just knowing what you need to do and cracking on.
You're frustratingly inactive on social media, people might have noticed, because Jamie's quite happy just doing hard things every day in the background without contributing to the marketing efforts of the business. Prick.
I contribute in a different way.
You do contribute in a different way. Look at that, there we go. It's piping up. Let's go, let's go. Hammer curls and scraps. A first for the channel.
It's quite a good channel name.
I think it was Jimmy Carr I heard saying it recently, which was along the lines of, you can only be jealous or envious of somebody if you'd willingly swap every element of your life with theirs.
Yeah.
And that's, people see those at the top of the mountain, ignorant or not mindful, at the very least, of the climb that got them there. And that's ultimately the hard bit. That's the bit that they did that got them there, that for anyone that's just sitting and sort of focusing on the person at the top of the mountain, they are ultimately missing the whole point, in my opinion, which is that the process of getting there was what made them the person that's at the top. You can't do one without the other. So whilst Jamie's curling, correct me if I'm wrong, but context on how Jamie's professional career came to an end was that he was partly funded by Scotland, partly funded by Durham, and Scotland had a budget reallocation a couple of days before his contract renewal, so he turned up to a contract renewal where there was a contract but the funding wasn't there. The budget had already been allocated by Durham for the rest of the team, and that was effectively it. After a couple of weeks of trying to make something work, it was kind of a thanks and see you later. Is that more or less kind of what happened?
Yeah, I mean, long and short of it was I was under the impression I was going to be getting another contract and then didn't. Which, unfortunately, that's just the case with sport, which is obviously hard.
How did you, like, I know you've mentioned the self-worth thing, and I know you better than these lovely viewers do, but was there a sense of relief in some ways?
Yes and no. I think where my mindset around cricket was really weird was it was still the thing which in my head I wanted to do the most, because that's what I told myself as a kid. So, like, if you actually put a gun to my head and said, what do you want to do? I'd say cricket. But then if you probably kept the gun to my head, I'd then probably not say cricket.
You'd say food.
Yeah, competitive eater. But no, I think that's where it's really hard to explain, and it's really hard for people to understand if they've not been in a similar situation. But my relationship with it was, I mean, don't get me wrong, absolutely loved a lot of it, had some incredible memories, met some amazing people, been to some amazing places, and it's been my life. But at the same time, I also hated the thing I loved the most in terms of what I was doing on a day-to-day basis.
Did it steal the ability for you to find joy in other things as well?
Yeah. For a while, I couldn't really enjoy other parts of life because all I was thinking about was cricket. So, like, if I did badly in cricket and then I was seeing friends the following day, I'd still be thinking about cricket.
Did you feel like a failure then, and do you feel like a failure now, within cricket as a bucket alone?
Good question. At the time, yes, definitely. Now I look back at it predominantly and think it is a relief, but then also there's always going to be that chip on my shoulder where I'm like, I didn't quite get to where I wanted. And I think I'll have that until the day I die.
Ooh, mysterious.
But yeah, I think that's where it's odd. Like, I look at it now and think, like, I did achieve so much. Again, not everything I wanted to, but the people and the experience I will continue to have, because I'm still playing cricket and being able to meet new people and do different things that way. But I think I can look back and think I didn't quite get to where I wanted, but then also be very appreciative of what I did do, which is more than most.
In my opinion, the only question that matters, do you believe you gave it your all within the circumstances you had available to you to go after what you dreamed?
Yes. And I think because of my age, I'll often get people saying, oh, you're still so young and you'll be able to do more. But those people probably haven't been in a similar situation.
I mean, I know what your existence was like as a teenager. It was very atypical.
Yeah, it's very easy for people to say, oh, you've still got years ahead of you. I'm 40. Like, the way I always think about it is I was only 22 when I got told that I wasn't getting another contract, but in my head I felt like I was 40 in cricket because it had been such a big part and like a long part of my life already.
Well, as a percentage, you began the process of aspiring to be a professional cricketer when you were 11 and you drew it to a close when you were 22. That's 50% of your life.
Yeah.
which we've spoken about before, and is actually, when he first said that to me, that was something that really changed my perspective on it, which is, yeah, he's only 22, knows nothing. Easy, cynical thing to say, but at the end of the day, he woke up for 11 years with one singular focus at the front of his mind. A couple of side quests along the way, picking heavy things up off the floor, and running around in circles, but that ultimately contributed to your ability as a pro. So now that you're out the game, so to speak, it's like a geezer. I'm out of the game now, bruv. I'm out of the game. You're not a gangster.
You don't know that.
Ooh. You'd make a good kingpin. You've definitely been large enough at points to be kingpin. Once you start balding like I am, then yeah, kingpin is a character that would suit you, I'd say. Have you got a three-piece? Does Kingpin wear a three-piece suit or a? Is it
pinstripe suit?
I think it's pinstripe, isn't it? Yeah.
Maybe it's a pinstripe three-piece.
Ooh. You don't own one of them, do you?
No.
It's a pretty niche bit of clothing to own. Having obviously taken on some pretty major projects recently, for those that don't know, Jamie was essentially responsible with the management and launch of all of our new website and a lot of the people management internally at Omnia. So he's taken on a huge amount of responsibility internally, which allows me to make more content like this and launch series like this. How have you pivoted so that you can be happy day to day existing in an entrepreneurial startup business environment, rather than ascribing your self-worth to that of how many runs you score on a weekly basis? And I guess it hasn't been easy.
I mean, there's huge crossover. I think at the end of the day, in anything, there's crossover and principles that you need to follow in order to work hard and overcome tasks in anything, I suppose. But I think I always said I wanted to be part of a team and work towards a goal. And I think that's where the last year, less than a year, but having that increased responsibility has sort of covered that. I mean, the irony is, I think probably just by nature, I've also ascribed a bit of it to my identity.
Do you get any of the joy that you experienced winning the T20 Cup at Wallasey, seeing Omnia's athletes achieve things all over the world? Is there a similarity there?
Yeah.
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 So what drives you? If you could distill it down, is it contribution? Is it something measurable? Because honestly, as your brother, I don't know the answer. Genuinely.
Probably to the detriment of myself, probably seeing others do it, which is an interesting way. I'm of the belief that to reach the highest level in anything, you obviously have to have that inner drive and not arrogance, but supreme confidence to just back yourself in a situation. And I think that's where, take cricket for example, I probably didn't have that. Sort of looking back, self-aware, and I think that's where you need to wake up and think, you know what, I'm fucking doing this, and no one's going to stop me. Whereas in my head, I was like, I sort of believe that, but then there was another voice in my head saying, you're not good enough.
You were too British. You need to be an American about these things.
How do you
fulfilling. Therefore measure your own goals and ambitions as an individual?
Am I enjoying what I'm doing, and do I see myself working towards something and overcoming it, I'd say. And if yes, then I'd say I'm doing well.
Are you?
Yes.
Then you're doing well. Excellent. If you could give our lovely viewers, the ladies and gentlemen at home, the one lesson that has had the biggest impact on your ability to pursue that which we just discussed. So your definition of success, which sounds like it's just forward motion towards a measurable outcome, I guess is kind of the summary. What is the lesson that you would share with the world that's helped you the most?
If I thought about this, I'd probably be able to come up with something different, but I'd say, long story short, through when I've been in sort of tougher times with cricket, I saw a psychologist who was an enormous help, and I worked with him for a very long time and credit him to a lot of what I did then end up achieving. But something which he said to me was, don't see time off as time off, and see it also as training and work. And I think that's such a big thing, whether it is you're an entrepreneur, sport, whatever it is. I think seeing the rest not as just being lazy and not doing the work, that in itself is work, and really crediting.
Yeah, I struggle with that.
And seeing enjoyment as training. In anything, I think people see not working as slacking off.
The thing that really got me at uni when I was in a dark place was every decision I was making, every contribution I could have day to day, if it wasn't moving the needle forwards towards the big North Star goals that I was setting myself, I didn't see it as having any merit. Big thing for me was the fractional decision making day to day. Is what I am doing right now contributing to the person that I want myself to be in the future? And that mindset meant that I was literally couldn't be happy in the moment enjoying things for what they are.
Yeah.
Because it always had to be in service at full foot to the floor of the thing that I was going to be in the future, which, you committed to when you were 11, I guess.
Yeah.
So how do you rest? You're good at rest, actually. This is funny because actually you're a good example of someone that can switch off well.
Not always, but because I also do think that if you are a hard worker and you want to achieve stuff, there's always going to be that element of not being able to switch off because you care, I'd say. But yeah, I think that is the key thread. It's like seeing the time off as genuine value to your forward motion and success, and not just something which you might fancy doing once in a while. But I mean, for me personally, it's going in the mountains, spending time with my girlfriend. And I think, to be fair, that's like spending time with Charlotte is when I can fully switch off. And like, she's aware of everything, which sort of like my own headspace, so she knows what to ask and what not to. And yeah, I think just doing new things, trying to enjoy different things, and spending time with people you like.
You were up in the hills on Sunday for the first time since we've launched the new model, weren't you? How was that?
Still very much enjoyed it. Still very much felt in the present. I'd say what was interesting was the reason why I got into the hills in the first place was to escape cricket and constantly thinking about that. It did sort of become my escape, where like if I had a day off, I'd just drive to whether it's Snowdonia, Highlands or whatever, and just spend time there and really enjoy that, whether it was on my own or with other people. I think on Sunday, I did find myself thinking, like almost trying to use the time to think creatively about the business, which I know is something which you do a lot in terms of when you're out and about. Yeah, that's when you get your best ideas, but yeah, I was intentionally trying to switch off, so it was a bit different, but I did find myself thinking about it. But again, that's been a huge part of my life, to intentionally switch off and enjoy something. My legs feel it a bit now, but
Lacking conditioning, innit? Been more laptop, less. Any Monroes that begin with an L?
Ben Louis,
That begins with a B.
well, most of them. Leothak?
Nice. You probably pronounced that horribly.
Yeah, sorry.
Anyway, very good game, Jamie. Thank you for being episode number 1. Just a reminder, any other guests that you want down below, that was a very long, lingering handshake. Intro, outro, the same. Any guests that you want to see, please drop them in the comments down below. We're now going to conclude with Jamie doing a supinated set of 15 on dumbbell curls, and make no noise as we watch him do it to silently sign off on the video. So if you have enjoyed this, I've really enjoyed this personally, drop the video a like, comment with your thoughts, feelings, insights, and or guest suggestions down below. Hit subscribe, ding that little bell icon, and I might even convert the Old Modern Mind podcast channel into a clips channel if this lands well. Curls for the girls. Sorry, girl, singular, Charlotte.